All right, so how's it going, everyone? So this is live coverage on this current winter storm we're seeing throughout the United States. So let's now take a look at the current radar, and we're now seeing the heavy snowfall begin to develop right around the Oklahoma area. Let me actually open up a second screen so you guys so I could see the chat as well. Let me see if I could see my own live. Okay, let me just refresh actually. All right, but yeah, guys. So here's a heavy amount of snowfall we're seeing. So take a look at the snowfall rates for Oklahoma City right now. You're experiencing mainly light snowfall, maybe around a tenth of an inch per hour. But look at the snowfall rates just to the west. We're seeing around 1 inch per hour snowfall rates right around the El Reno area of Oklahoma, and going even further westward now towards the Panhandle of Florida, towards Plainview, towards Lubbock. Lubbock is currently experiencing 1 inch per hour snowfall rates, which is definitely quite insane for that area, and definitely something you don't see necessarily every day. So yeah, definitely be aware of that. And in Lubbock, it could probably last for another hour on these 1 inch per hour snowfall rates. So within next hour, expect around 1 inch of snow, which is definitely very high. The snow plows won't be able to keep up, definitely. So you need to be aware of that happening right around the Lubbock area. And going into Amarillo as well, you're experiencing right around a quarter of an inch of snow accumulation in about an hour. So definitely keep that in mind in that area. And now let's zoom out even further. So here's the entirety of the United States, and look at how large this area of snow is. Illinois is expected to receive a good amount of snowfall right around the Champaign area. This is where you are experiencing close to 1 inch per hour snowfall rates. And then going southward, New Orleans experiencing very heavy rainfall right now. And you're probably wondering how will this storm system actually turn out for the Northeast. So taking a look at that, let's take a look at the current computer models forecasts based on what the European model is stating as of the latest forecast. Let's go to tropical tidbits, and then here we are. So let's take a look at the European model. It has been the more reliable model. This is as of the 12Z run of the Euro, the latest model run. And we see the big question remains for New York City, Philadelphia. How long will you be under that mixing or the rain in those areas? Because that's a big thing limiting the snow totals for New York City, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and even Washington, D.C. and Baltimore as well. And as of right now, the European model is still persistent that I'd say right around 3 to 4 p.m. for New York City and Philadelphia. This is when you could expect the rain intrusion to move into those cities, which could limit the snowfall totals for you guys right around the city. Now, taking a look at the latest forecast from the National Weather Service to give you guys a better idea of what to expect. Let's go to the precipitation portal. Let me see if I could find it here. Yeah, precipitation portal, it's called. So take a look at the current snowfall forecast from the National Weather Service. We see that it seems like the National Weather Service has been pushing the snowfall more and more further northward, focusing in more so right around the interior Northeast and New England, rather than the heaviest snowfall being over New York City and Philadelphia, where now the new forecast right around New York City is close to 11 inches of snowfall. Still could see the possibility of over a foot of snow, but the National Weather Service is saying it's a little bit less likely now, as it seems like the computer models have been shifting to the idea that the rain snow line will move a little bit further northward than anticipated. So New York City will be in the snowfall a little bit less than anticipated, and a little bit more mixing will get involved, and maybe even a little bit of freezing rain in New York City more than initially anticipated, which is also a major threat for the city. But the expected amount is right around 10 to 11 inches. The high end is around 13 inches, but the high ends, the National Weather Service always tends to be very conservative when it comes to its high end forecast and its low end forecast. So I'll say the high end could still be higher than 13 inches, but it'll be very hard, I'd say, for this to give you over 15 inches of snowfall for New York City. So most likely, it should be just under a foot to New York City, or maybe right around a foot. But regardless, this would still be New York City's biggest snowfall since February 2021 with Winter Storm Orlando, which brought close to 2 feet of snow throughout northern New Jersey and New York City, and even some parts of Jersey, like right around somewhere around this area of Jersey. I can't remember specifically. Okay, hey, Yates Williams, thank you for tuning in Emporia, Virginia. So, let's take a look at the forecast for Virginia at this time. In fact, let me actually let me find the location, because I'm not exactly sure where in Virginia it's exactly at. Then I can give you a more in detail outlook. Let me take a look at the maps here. Okay, so just south of Richmond, close to the North Carolina border. So if we were to take a look at the snowfall forecast for around that area, right now the current forecast for Emporia, Virginia should be right about 1 to 3 inches of snowfall, but the main threat won't be snowfall for you guys. It will likely be ice accumulation. So taking a look at the forecasted ice accumulation, this is very concerning. I emphasize to definitely take precaution. Make sure to be prepared in case of a power outage, because it's certainly highly possible when we're talking about ice accumulation that could exceed over a half of an inch of ice. So very concerning. And of course, the snowfall will make things even worse, and it will make the road conditions even worse for that area. So you need to be prepared and have a plan in case of a power outage, in case you lose heat in your home, because that's also a possibility when you lose power. And also make sure to and hopefully, like, if you haven't got your I'm assuming you got your supplies, but if you haven't got your supplies just yet, definitely do it as soon as you can, because this snowfall is right around the corner. Taking a look back at the radar for that area, so you guys are already getting involved with the snowfall accumulation right around Emporia, Virginia, where the snowfall rates are already around 1/4 of an inch per hour. So not a heavy amount of snowfall, so heavy to where the roads are completely impassable. So if you could, if it's possible to still prepare, if you haven't already, definitely do so at this moment, because look at the snowfall rates just to the west. It's only going to get heavier from here. So make sure to keep that in mind right around the Virginia area. So definitely be aware of that. And this extends to the Northeast as well. Washington, D.C., the snowfall is right at your doorstep. I'll say it won't really move in until probably the 9 to 10 p.m. time frame, as the worst of snowfall should happen tonight and overnight on Sunday for Washington, D.C., before it eventually changes over to mixing. So taking a look at the Futurecast radar, let's see if I wonder if there's a Futurecast radar. Okay, there is. So let's take a look. So based on this forecast, it seems like the snowfall is ahead of schedule, moving a little bit further eastward. So that's definitely very interesting. So we could potentially see impacts earlier than anticipated for much of the Northeast, including Washington, D.C. So in this forecast, it's saying by around 1 a.m. the snowfall should move into Washington, D.C. But based on the radar right now, I think it'll happen earlier, more like right around 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. As, like I said, just showed in the radar, it seems like the storm system is moving a little bit faster than anticipated at this point. And of course, we have the rain moving in, and this doesn't necessarily show where exactly that rain snow line will be, but it definitely will exist, a large area of ice. So definitely be aware of that in that area. Now, taking a look at the rest of the Midwest, going into Indianapolis, going into Ohio, this is where you should expect heavier snowfall. So let's go over the timing. And guys, by the way, if you're watching, feel free to ask any questions regarding the forecast for your specific location. I'll make sure to give you guys the most in-detail forecast possible. So if you're interested, make sure to ask any questions. But let's take a look at the timing in the Futurecast radar. So we're right around 7 p.m. on Saturday at right now. Let's take a look at the current radar, and this snowfall is a little bit ahead of schedule, like I just mentioned. But take a look back at the Futurecast radar. You might think that in Oklahoma City this is going to be the heaviest snowfall you'll see all day, but that's far from the case, because by the time we approach later tonight, let's go right around the 9 p.m. time. This is where we could see snowfall rates anywhere between half an inch to up to an inch per hour in Oklahoma City. So impacts will be extremely devastating. So definitely keep that in mind right around that area. And then going into much of the Ohio River Valley into Louisville, it should be light snowfall initially speaking, and then going into 11 p.m. that's when we'll get into the moderate snowfall. So right around 10 p.m. I'll say for Louisville, that's where you could expect the snowfall rates to be more at a moderate stage at this point. For portions of southern Missouri, it should be moderate as well to potentially heavy at times, with snowfall rates close to an inch per hour. But talking now, moving on, let's go all the way forward and focus in on the Northeast a little bit more. So here's the Northeast. Like I said, by midnight, the snowfall should move into Washington, D.C. and continuing even more forward. Let's go into 5 a.m. We should see moderate snowfall for Washington, D.C. For Philadelphia, it should begin as light snowfall, and it should move in likely by, I'll say, the 3 a.m. time frame for Philadelphia, and then going even more forward. In New York City, it should move in right around 5 a.m. and beginning as light snowfall. It'll still be light snowfall at 6 a.m. for Philadelphia, but Washington, D.C. will be close to heavy snowfall, with snowfall rates anywhere between half an inch to up to an inch per hour, which is definitely something you want to be aware of. Now going to 8 a.m., this is where the snowfall really gets heavy. We're talking about snowfall rates close to an inch per hour for Washington, D.C. Philadelphia, moderate snow should be right over you guys at around this time period. And then moving even more forward, the storm system becomes even more developed, where this is where we expect the heaviest snowfall in Washington, D.C. right anywhere between 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. That's when you should expect the worst of the snowfall for Washington, D.C. And same goes for Baltimore. For Philadelphia as well, I'll say right around 9 a.m. That's when the snowfall will really get heavy. Still light snowfall, though, for New York City at this time. And moving even more forward, I'll say we should begin to get into the mixing a little bit right around the 11 a.m. to noon time on tomorrow, on Sunday for Washington, D.C. I wish it showed how large a ice accumulation area would be. There's just straight up just snow and rain, but this should likely be freezing rain over Washington, D.C. at this point. Freezing rain and ice accumulation, which is definitely very concerning. Take a look back at the ice accumulation expected for Washington, D.C. Could be anywhere between a tenth of an inch to up to a quarter of an inch of ice, which is definitely enough to make road conditions very dangerous in Washington, D.C. Not as much as what the areas further southward will experience, but definitely enough to cause some havoc right over much of Washington, D.C. So definitely be aware of that in those areas. And going into Philadelphia as well, you could expect up to a tenth of an inch of ice. But now let's take a look back at the Futurecast radar. So continuing even more forward, we see Washington, D.C. By the time we approach noontime, you should all be in the rain and snow. Actually, it does show a little bit of mixing right here, because we do see the area where it's a mix of snow and rain. So this would be the area where it would be sleet or freezing rain, where you see the rain and snow overlap right here. Yeah, definitely keep that in mind when taking a look at this radar. Now even moving more forward, even more northward, heavy snowfall should be expected. Like I said, anywhere between 9 a.m. to right around 1 to 2 p.m. for Philadelphia. This is where you could expect snowfall rates 1 inch per hour. Let's actually look at the timing. So by 9 a.m., the snowfall rate should be at around an inch per hour, just less than an inch per hour. 10 a.m., again, or right around an inch per hour. 11 a.m., close to an inch per hour. And then 12 p.m., an inch per hour again. So so that's 3 hours where the snowfall rates will be at around an inch per hour. And moving even more forward, at around 1 p.m., the snowfall should already be or should already be ending for Philadelphia. Should be more of a mixing. But for New York City, you're just getting started with a heavy snowfall by 1 p.m. and then by 2 p.m. very heavy snowfall just before the rain snow line approaches. That's where you should expect the heaviest snowfall out of this. So I'll say for New York City, it'll be a little bit later until you experience a heavier snowfall, but I'll say the snowfall will really get heavy for New York City right around 11 a.m. and it should last all the way until probably 3 to 4 a.m. where between that 4 or 5 hour time period, snowfall rates should be around an inch per hour before it changes all over to a mixing and sleet precipitation. I apologize, guys. I'm also looking at the chat and like the screen at the same time. I wish like I could just look at it on the screen, but I don't want to take up real estate with this screen. I want to show the weather as much as possible with this screen. But so in New York City, Philadelphia, you should expect anywhere between 8 to 12 inches of snowfall. Let's take a look back at the snowfall forecast for New York City and Philadelphia. So this is based on National Weather Service forecasts, and it could easily be higher, like I said, if we were maybe to see the rain snow line take a little bit slower to move further northward, or it doesn't move as far north as initially anticipated. So for Philadelphia, right around 8 inches is forecasted. Washington, D.C., right around 9 inches. Same goes for Baltimore. For New York City, it's right around 11 inches of snowfall at this time for much of northern New Jersey into Newark, into Patterson. 10 to 11 inches is the current forecast right now, so close to a foot. But regardless of whether it's a foot of snow or 10 inches of snowfall, this would be the biggest snowfall the New York City metropolitan area has experienced in nearly 5 years. Last time was in February 2021 with Winter Storm Orlena. And going southward into Philadelphia, this is where you should expect 8 inches of snowfall. So this would be one of the bigger snowstorms you've experienced in the Philadelphia area. Same goes for Baltimore and Washington, D.C., as it's definitely going to be once every few years type storm for those areas. But now let's shift further northward, because Boston is where you could expect a really big snowfall, because it's going to be an all snow event for Boston. So it will, the Boston area won't need to worry about the rain or the sleet mixing in. So right now the current forecast for Boston is right around 15 inches of snowfall, and this goes same for much of Massachusetts in general. Worcester going into Brockton, Massachusetts as well, and going even further southward into New Bedford, you could expect close to a foot of snow. Providence, Rhode Island, right around a foot of snow. Same goes for Hartford, where you could experience up to 14 inches of snowfall. New Haven, around a foot of snow. In the oranges, where you should expect 12 to 18 inches of snowfall. So very devastating impacts are expected in all of these areas. Yeah, definitely be prepared all throughout the Northeast. And going into Albany, you could experience not only over a foot of snow, but potentially close to 18 inches of snowfall, where the current forecast for the Albany area is right around 17 inches of snowfall. So definitely a very impactful snowstorm for you guys. Same goes for Saratoga Springs. You definitely need to be aware of that. And then going into southern Vermont, in the higher elevations especially, you could expect close to 20 inches of snowfall. Going to be an all snow event for you guys. And of course, since you're in the higher elevations, you're more likely to see a rapid amount of precipitation, thanks to the upslope winds forcing a lot of convection right over the mountain. So you're more likely to experience close to 20 inches of snowfall right around the higher elevations of Vermont. Going into the Catskills as well, you're more likely. And close to Binghamton as well, you could experience close to right around 18 inches of snowfall. So very impactful snowstorm for you guys. You definitely need to be prepared in all of these areas for one of the biggest snowstorms you've experienced in years. And by the way, guys, feel free in the chat to ask any questions. I'll do my best to give you guys the most in detail forecast possible regarding this winter storm. So definitely feel free to ask any questions, and you could ask me which areas to cover if you want a forecast for that area. So definitely feel free to do that. But let's take a look now at the rest of the Midwest. So Oklahoma City, you should expect an additional 8 inches of snowfall. So this is very impactful for you guys. Now let's take a look back at the current radar for the entirety of the United States. So Here's the snowfall. But actually, let's go take a look at the AccuWeather radar, because it does show where the freezing rain is, and I could talk a little bit more about the freezing rain and much of the snowfall in the areas further southward. So let's take a look at that. So here we are. Here's where we are right around Nashville, where you're experiencing a good amount of freezing rain at this time, and you could expect close to an inch of freezing rain. And then going for much of the southeast in general, we see that we're seeing isolated areas of freezing rain and sleet right now. Dallas right now is experiencing a decent amount of freezing rain. In fact, let's take a look at a live cam in Dallas to see what's going on over there when it comes to weather. So let's take a look at that real quick. And hopefully, like, it's night times, but hopefully it show. Okay, we can't see much there. Okay, so here's one look at Dallas as of right now, right around, or Fort Worth, I should say. We're seeing we've seen a decent amount of snow accumulation right over Dallas. Based on what I'm seeing, this is probably right around a little bit, maybe around an inch of snow, not much. But of course, the main threat in Dallas isn't necessarily the snowfall accumulation. It's more so the ice accumulation, which is very concerning for the Dallas area. So you definitely need to be aware of that for much of Texas. Going back to the ice accumulation forecast for Dallas, in terms of additional ice accumulation, not much more is expected, as it seems like a lot of the damage has already been done for Dallas, maybe around 1/10 of an inch more. But you still want to be aware of those dangerous conditions when driving out, because the snow, of course, with the snowfall and the ice accumulation already on the roadways, the threat is far from over, even if we're not necessarily expected to receive much more ice accumulation right around the Dallas area. But for the areas to the southward, it's only going to get started. Just to the northwest of Houston, you could expect anywhere between 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch of ice, which is definitely very concerning stuff. Power outages are definitely likely in a lot of these areas. And then going into Louisiana, it could get even worse right around just right around northern Louisiana. You could expect up to an inch of ice accumulation, and over an inch of ice accumulation, in fact, is expected for much of northern Mississippi, where we're going to see the snow bands begin to consolidate a little bit more, creating a very dangerous ice threat right around the area of Mississippi. So definitely be aware of that in the southeast, as it's going to be a very, very concerning threat for you guys. All right. Yeah, let me let me catch my breath a little bit. I know it's a lot of information, but I definitely want to do my best to keep you guys updated regarding this winter storm, because it is very, very dangerous, and I'm very concerned for many areas of the southeast. So here's a look at Atlanta. You could expect anywhere between 1/4 of an inch to up to an inch of ice. Charlotte, maybe around 1/2 of an inch of ice is expected. So definitely a lot is going to change over the next 24 hours in these cities. So let's take a look back at the European model. Let's take a more zoomed in look at the southeast to give you guys a better idea of when that ice accumulation will really begin. So we're already seeing, so I'll say the heaviest of the ice accumulation should move in right around, I'll say the right around the 9 a.m. time on Sunday, where the heavy rain will coincide with where the heavy precipitation will coincide with freezing rain right over Mississippi. As the second round of this winter storm will bring a lot more snowfall and ice accumulation to the southeast. Take a look back at the current radar right now. Let's take a look back at that. So here we are. Here's the entirety of the Midwest, the Southeast, and Northeast. So in terms of the ice that's going on right now, so right around Arkansas, this is very concerning heavy ice accumulation we're seeing, because look at these ice accumulation rates. Very heavy stuff. And if you're, in case you're wondering if it's freezing rain or snow, it seems like there's a good amount of snow, but also freezing rain right around Arkansas at this time, as at this point you're experiencing maybe a little bit of mix of wintry mix or snow or freezing rain. But it'll most likely change all over to freezing rain for this portion of Arkansas in the very near future. Taking a look back at the European model, we see it will eventually change over to snow, but right now you're experiencing freezing rain right over much of Arkansas and heavier. So right around the Russellville area of Arkansas, Fort Smith, and then going into much of eastern Oklahoma, where it's mostly snowfall for right around eastern Oklahoma, right around the Muskogee area of Oklahoma. This is where it's mostly snowfall. It's moderate snowfall right now, but it's only going to get heavier for Oklahoma City and much of the panhandle of Texas. So definitely be aware of that in all of these areas. So, so let me check the chat. By the way, guys, feel free to ask any questions regarding anything you're wondering about the snowstorm forecast, because I'm here to answer them if you want even more in detail forecasts regarding your specific location. So let's zoom out a little bit more, and then going into, let's go back to the northeast at this time. We're seeing light snowfall now move into the Richmond area. Roanoke is still right around light snowfall, but still is producing right around a quarter of an inch of snowfall per hour, but it'll slowly get heavier as time progresses. The Greensboro area, in terms of the precipitation you're experiencing right around Greensboro at this time, it's still in the form of snowfall, but eventually it will change over to freezing rain as we're going to see that warm nose eventually creep into the Greensboro, North Carolina area. And Charlotte, you're likely going to experience an all-freezing rain threat, which is still very dangerous for you guys. In terms of the timing of this, in fact, let's take a look at the Charlotte area right now, see if there's anything when it comes to snowfall accumulation or ice accumulation. So taking a look at that right now. So these are definitely older because it's definitely not daytime right up along the East Coast. So let's take a look at a live camera that's active, I'll say, right now. So let's take a look at that. There's a good amount of lighting. So this as of 7:18, we see not much is going on just yet. Of course, it's just starting for you guys. So right around the Charlotte area, you haven't seen much yet, but it's going to get much more impactful and devastating as time progresses. So definitely be aware of that. Let's actually take a look at the Futurecast radar to show you guys when you could expect that precipitation to move in. So by right around 11 p.m., I'll say by 10 p.m. for Charlotte, that's when you should expect the freezing rain to move in and really get heavy for you guys and going even more forward. It gets very concerning right around the morning time on Sunday, where look at this heavy band of freezing rain that's expected to move in to the Charlotte area. Just very, very concerning stuff. Let's take a look back at the European model. It will eventually change over to rain for the Charlotte area. In fact, let's take a look at the Futurecast radar because it's I think it gives a better idea of when you more precise measurement of when you could expect the freezing rain and the rain to move in. So this so let's go back 7 p.m. This is right around where we're at right now. By 10 p.m. and then by 1 a.m. this is where the ice accumulation should really get heavy for the Charlotte area, for much of North Carolina. Same goes for Southern Virginia. Richmond, you're still going to be in the snowfall right around 1 a.m., but you're very soon going to change over to the freezing rain. By 4 a.m., very heavy freezing rain at this point. Look at the darker shades of purple. This is very concerning stuff. Up to a half of an inch of ice is expected. Very, very concerning stuff. 7 a.m., it'll continue for Charlotte, and we could maybe get back into a wintry mix for Charlotte as the temperature warms up before we eventually see a little bit more rain intrusion, I'll say late on Sunday, but the damage will already be done for much of Charlotte. Back to the ice accumulation forecast. Let me actually fix this map right here. So going back to it, right now the current forecast is right around a half of an inch of ice, but you're very close to the area where you could experience anywhere between half of an inch to up to an inch of ice, which is very devastating, enough to cause power outages. Stay off the roads all of Sunday because road conditions are just going to be too treacherous all over the Charlotte area and for the rest of North Carolina in general. So definitely stay prepared for that all throughout North Carolina. For Raleigh, you could expect maybe close to a half of an inch of ice accumulation. South Carolina, going into Spartanburg, this is where you could expect close to an inch of ice. The higher elevations of Appalachian could be right around up to an inch of ice accumulation, which again, very concerning for you guys, as the worst of the ice accumulation should happen in the overnight hours on Sunday and pretty much all through Sunday morning in general for much of western North Carolina and western South Carolina, and for much of northern Georgia as well. So definitely keep that in mind in those areas. Let me take a look back at the chat. So guys, feel free to ask any questions if you're curious about anything. In case you just got into the stream, because I'm here to answer them, and I want to give you guys the most in detail forecast possible regarding your specific location. So let's take a look back up the Interstate 95 corridor. You're also expected to receive a good amount of ice accumulation, so definitely be aware of that in those areas. And take a look back at the current radar as of right now. Let's take a look at this. Let's now talk about the Midwest, because I haven't talked much about it, including the Chicago area, where you're now experiencing a light amount of snowfall. Take a look at the live cam for Chicago at this time. Let's take a look at that real quick to see what's going on when it comes to snowfall accumulation at this time. So let me find another more reliable link. So here's a look. We do see snowfall accumulation. Not a ton is on the ground, but it is snowing right now, fairly light snow, and of course extremely cold right around Chicago. So the Chicago area, you shouldn't expect that much snow out of this winter storm, as for the most part the heavier snowfall will be just to the south of you guys. So but still, you still need to be aware of a possibility of maybe a good area of 3 to 5 inches of snowfall for much of tonight. Let's take a look back at the radar and the forecast when it comes to snowfall over Chicago. So this should last all night, but fairly light snowfall for Chicago. Not much, like I said, maybe around 3 inches of snow, and I'll say this will all be done right around Sunday morning. But for the most part, very light snowfall. The snow plows should be able to keep up. I don't necessarily expect any major snowfall out of this in Chicago, or any major travel problems in Chicago, but just be aware of those slick road conditions, because even light amount of snowfall could make road conditions a little bit more dangerous. So make sure to take the necessary precautions right around the Chicago area. Going into the current snowfall forecast for the Chicago area at this time, we're expecting maybe right around 3 to 5 inches of snowfall for Chicago at this time. So a little bit more than initially anticipated. So but it'll fall at a fairly long duration, so the snowplows will be able to keep up at least at a decent clip. But even then, the road conditions should still be dangerous in Chicago, so you need to be aware and just stay safe. And I just don't recommend going out for tonight in Chicago and going into Sunday morning, obviously, because the road conditions will be a little bit too bad in that area. But in terms of other cities in the Midwest, like Detroit and Cleveland, right now the current forecast for Detroit is similar to Chicago, right around 5 to 8 inches of snowfall. The snowfall rates, however, should be a little bit more heavy. Going back into the radar, we see snowfall rates are still light, but still heavier than what Chicago was receiving. So right around the Detroit area, you could expect snowfall rates anywhere between 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch per hour. So not necessarily the heaviest snowfall, but it'll be a long duration event. So it's going to be a while before you get out of the snowfall for Chicago. It might be actually until a Sunday night before the snowfall is all said and done for Detroit. So you need to so definitely be prepared for that. That it's going to be an all-day event for the Detroit area. Same goes for Toledo, Idaho. Ohio as well. And Cleveland, this is where you could expect the heavier snow bands. Let's go back into the future. As the heaviest snowfall, I'll say, will happen right around noontime for Cleveland, where we could experience snowfall rates up to 1/2 of an inch per hour. Not as much as the areas for southward, but still enough to dump a higher amount of snowfall right around Cleveland. For Cleveland, the forecast is right around 10 inches of snowfall, so very similar as what you're experiencing, like what you're going to, like what the other cities in the Northeast are going to experience. However, the key difference is that the snowfall rates will be a little bit less in Chicago. It'll be a more long duration event for Cleveland. I meant to say not Chicago, Cleveland. But the heavier snow bands will be in the Northeast, but it'll be a shorter duration event for Northeast, which is the reason why, despite the Cleveland experiencing more hours of snowfall, it's only going to experience a similar amount of snowfall as what you're going to see in the Northeast, despite the weaker snow bands. Just a longer duration event for the Cleveland area, because it's going to be an all snow event for right around Cleveland. So be aware of that in those areas. This winter storm is called Fern. Oh yeah, winter storm Fern. This winter storm is called. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Yeah, I have around. And by the way, if you're just joining, feel free to ask any questions or and anything like that. I'm here to answer them. I'm here to give you guys the most in detail forecast possible. Yeah, definitely. And I thank you guys all for the support during these live streams. So going into the Boston area, 15 inches of snowfall, very big snowfall right around Boston. Upstate New York, same thing. And most of Massachusetts and going into New Hampshire and Vermont as well. Very heavy snowfall, one of the worst we've seen in quite a while. So let's see the other areas. Taking a look back at the radar. Let's take a look at the current radar right now. So St. Louis experiencing quite a bit of snowfall. Actually, guys, give me just 1 second. Let me just get a little bit of water to keep my energy and my voice a little bit, because I have been talking quite a bit. So just give me 1 second. In terms of if winter storm Fern is the strongest, it's one of the biggest, honestly, one of the biggest winter storms I've ever seen move through the United States. In terms of just sheer impact and how many people it's going to affect, I actually did a calculation, and this snowstorm would bring at least some sort of snow or ice to 200 million Americans, which is approximately 2/3 of the United States' entire population, which is just unbelievable how large this storm is. We're just seeing large scale effects, a strong ridge that's bringing a strong amount of cooler air further southward, and it's encountering an upper level low coming off the Pacific coast of California, and that warm air mixing in with that very cool air mass. You could probably take a look at the wind to really tell. We're seeing a strong southerly flow right around the Gulf of Mexico, and it's encountering this very cool air mass moving just to the south, and that's creating a strong amount of instability, thunderstorm activity. And once it encounters that cold air, of course that rain changes over to snow, and it's just a very large scale event. Just extreme cold mixing in with very warm Gulf of Mexico air, which is the reason why this storm system is just so large. So, and you could tell by taking a look at the temperatures. Look at the temperature difference in Shreveport right now, 25 degrees, only approximately a few hundred miles to the south. It's 66 right around New Orleans right now, or even a closer comparison, going in Jackson, 35 degrees, which isn't too far north of New Orleans. That stark temperature difference is creating just a strong amount of instability, making this storm system one of the biggest we've seen in United States history, to be honest, when it comes to just sheer impact, which is just quite insane to see as a meteorologist, to be honest. And here's a look at the temperatures all throughout the United States. We're talking about extreme cold, guys, which is the reason why the reason why the storm system is as large as it is. You're mixing single digit degree temperatures with nearly 80 degree temperatures right over the Gulf of Mexico. That's just bound to create a strong amount of convective energy to create a snowstorm this big. So very, very big storm. How fast is Fern? So it's moving relatively quick. Fern at this time, at least in terms of its movement. In terms of wind speed, this isn't necessarily going to be a huge wind maker out of this, as low pressure is over land. So it does. So of course, there's a lot of friction over land. So there isn't necessarily a ton of wind it could produce over land at this time. And also the way this storm system is overall built, there isn't necessarily this storm system isn't necessarily has a very bow echoey look, which is common for more windy type storm systems. It's a very more so elongated type storm at this time. Well, we're seeing the winds pick up just off the coast right here. As it seems like there's a small low pressure system right here encountering this strong ridge right over the northern United States at this time. So very cold temperatures we're seeing overall throughout the United States at this time. Take a look back at the radar. So Chicago, still light snowfall for you guys, but just the northwest, like I said, very heavy snowfall. This snow band is going to move to the northwest, so Chicago should miss out on the heavier snowfall further northwestward. But still, be aware of this light snowfall. You don't want to underestimate the snowfall in Oklahoma City just because it's it's not as heavy as what your neighbors are experiencing further northward. But yeah, guys, quite an insane snowstorm. In fact, let's take a look at a live cam right around Oklahoma City or other areas in Oklahoma like Norman. That's where I actually had a weather internship there at the National Weather Center during the summer and did a research project there. So I'm definitely curious to see how it looks. So here's Oklahoma City. Quite a bit of snowfall accumulation we're seeing, and the key thing that I'm noticing with the snowfall is that it's very fluffy snow we're seeing, which is expected with temperatures this cold. So typically less fluffy snow would stick on everything and it wouldn't necessarily pile up like this. But since the snow is so fluffy and soft, the wind is easily able to push it really anywhere. So it's going to be relatively hard actually to measure how much snowfall accumulation will fall, because the snowfall is so variable and all over the place when it's so like soft and fluffy to where the wind, any small wind could blow it. So snow drifts are possible with snowfall that's this soft over Oklahoma City. So keep that in mind if you plan on shoveling. Don't get too frustrated if there's snow drifts, because the snowfall will be definitely very easy to move around when it comes to it how light and soft it is. Let me go back to the chat real quick. How many wind does Fern have? Not much wind. Let's take a look back at the current wind forecast for Fern right now. And you see not much wind at all, really. We're seeing sustained winds maybe around 13 miles per hour in Oklahoma City. The strongest wind actually is just off the Charleston area, where if we were to take a look at the forecast from the European model in terms of what's going on there, let's take a look at the upper dynamics, because there could be a small low pressure system right around that specific area. Let's see. Okay, I can't really see where. Okay, can't really see where that low pressure system is located, but there seems to be a small low right here encountering the ridge just to the north of it. Let's take a look back. Here's the ridge right here, and there's likely a small low pressure system located in this area, creating a stronger amount of winds just off the Charleston coast. But again, not a huge wind maker out of this. Let's take a look at the future wind speed forecast. So let's go right around 10 p.m. We see not much wind from this at all. We could get stronger winds as the storm approaches off the coast, which is typical when this storm system goes off northeast coast, because that's when the low pressure system will be over an area where there's not going to be a lot of friction. So it'll be able to really strengthen that wind without being deterred by the heavy amount of friction that's over land. But also, there's a stronger amount of instability typically just off northeast coast, mainly thanks to the Gulf Stream that moves over this area, which brings an area of warmer water further northward than it should be. And once it encounters that cooler air mass of the winter, that typically creates stronger winds just off the northeast coast whenever a nor'easter moves into just off the northeast coast, mainly during the winter months when there's a stark temperature contrast between the Gulf Stream water as well as the air temperature. And moving even more forward, we could see sustained winds maybe around 16 to 17 in New York City. But in Boston, it could be a little bit stronger, where we could see wind gusts a little bit stronger than that. I don't expect these winds to necessarily be strong enough to bring any sort of coastal flooding threat, but still a good amount of wind to maybe definitely bring up snow drifts right around New England for sure, and maybe knock a few loose things outdoors. So if you do have a couple of loose things outdoors that could potentially be projectiles, make sure to bring them indoors, especially for northeast, because the winds could be a little bit stronger. Not insanely strong with what you'd typically expect with other winter storms, but a decent amount of wind, especially right around the New England area. So keep that in mind in those areas. Taking a look back at the current radar, we're seeing the snowfall now really move into Richmond, southern Maryland, and the Delmar Peninsula now getting involved with some snowfall. Washington, D.C., the snowfall is right at your doorstep. Columbus, Ohio, you're experiencing right around 1/2 of an inch of snowfall accumulation right now. Indianapolis, right around 1/2 of an inch. So not much new developments since I started live streaming. As of right now, the heavy snowfall is now beginning to develop right around western Oklahoma and going into the panhandle of Texas. And the snowfall will begin to get heavy for you guys, because look at all this heavy snowfall that's just to the southwest of Oklahoma City. That's all expected to move northward. So expect another maybe 8 inches of snowfall for Oklahoma City, which is quite a bit. In terms of when you could expect that heavy snowfall to move into Oklahoma City, I'll say right around the 9 to 10 p.m. time frame. We could experience snowfall rates again close to 1 inch per hour by the time we approach in about 2 to 3 hours. Same goes for Tulsa as well, where you could expect moderate snow, anywhere between 1/2 of an inch to up to 1 inch of snowfall per hour. And in terms of when it'll end for Oklahoma City, I'll say the heavier snowfall will end for Oklahoma City right around midnight, or more so 1 a.m. for Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And moving even more forward with the forecast, it will eventually transition to light snow for the most part up until Sunday morning, where I'll say it'll be completely all said and done by the time we approach right around 8 a.m. tomorrow for Oklahoma City and Tulsa, where, like I said, you could expect another 8 inches of snowfall out of this. And the worst of the snowfall should happen anywhere between 2 to 3 hours from now, and should last from a period, I'll say, anywhere between 9 p.m. to right around 1 a.m. Overnight on Sunday, which is approximately 6 hours from now. This this storm has new things to track. So here's a new word to add: snow total. Snow snow toes. Everyone's saying now. It. I think a word like that would make sense, definitely, to be honest. Because there's just so much things like that this storm system is bringing. I wish there was just one word we could mix together to really get a good, to really just like say snow or ice in a more easier fashion. Because when it comes to this snowstorm, there's just all types of wintry precipitation just moving through. And by the way, guys, if you're just entering, feel free to ask any questions regarding the forecast. Feel free to really ask anything regarding this winter storm or even something future weather related. I'm here to answer all your questions. I want to give you guys the most in detail forecast possible. So here's a look back at the snow total forecast. New York City, right around 10 to 12 inches of snowfall expected, still remaining the same. Let's actually refresh, see if there's any new updates regarding the snowfall. So taking a quick look at that. Yeah, still primarily the same for Philadelphia and New York City. Not seeing anything that would change this forecast otherwise at this point. Most likely it's 8 to 12 inches of snowfall for New York City, which again would be one of the biggest snowstorms we've seen in a while for New York City in years. So definitely keep that in mind all throughout those areas. So southern New England, right around 12 to 18 inches of snowfall. Very devastating snowstorm. And yeah, let's take a look back at the Futurecast radar. Snowfall should move into New York City, I'll say right around 6 a.m. Philadelphia a little bit earlier than that. Maybe around 3 a.m. for Philadelphia, but really gets heavy. Probably around 7 a.m. for Philadelphia, where the heavy snow bands really move in. And should last anywhere between 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., the heaviest snowfall for Philadelphia, where snowfall rates will be close to 1 inch per hour. So quite insane stuff we're about to see for the Northeast. One of the biggest snowstorms in a while. Much of Pennsylvania, same thing. And Ohio and Indiana as well, especially the southern portions, close to 1 inch per hour snowfall rates. Definitely keep that in mind in all of these areas. Going southward into northern Louisiana, this is very concerning because this freezing rain we're seeing over northern Louisiana is extremely heavy. So this, I wouldn't be surprised if we easily see with ice accumulation totals right around an inch, over an inch for northern Louisiana. One of the biggest ice storms really I've ever seen, to be honest. And for Dallas, it's mainly isolated, as most likely it's going to be primarily isolated when it comes to the rest of precipitation you're going to see for Dallas. Isolated freezing rain showers or snow showers. Let's take a look back at the Futurecast radar. So yeah, maybe it does become a little bit more consolidated, I'll say right around 10 p.m. for the Dallas area, where the ice accumulation should get a little bit more heavy. But at least as of right now, the National Weather Service isn't that confident that there's going to be much more ice accumulation for Dallas. But regardless, Dallas still expects... Dallas already has experienced quite a bit of ice accumulation at this point. I wonder if I still have... Okay, I don't think I still... Or maybe I do have... Okay, I don't have live cam. But in Dallas, like I showed with the live cam a little bit earlier, there was a little bit of snow on the ground. There was a little bit of ice. Not much more is expected outside of that, based on National Weather Service's forecast. So, but still, you need to be aware of that ice still existing over the roads for much of Dallas. Let's take a look at the precipitation forecast, and we kind of see why not much more ice accumulation is forecasted for Dallas. We could see a little bit more consolidation of this freezing rain by right around 11 p.m. for Dallas, but shouldn't last for too long. And a lot of this could be mixing, or it could be wintry mix as well. So maybe around 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation more before it's all said and done. But still, 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation could still cause a lot of havoc, especially when we're talking about this accumulating on the on the snowfall that already accumulated for much of the Dallas and Fort Worth area, and ice accumulation as well. In terms of the chance Houston could experience ice accumulation, right now, it doesn't seem like Houston will experience much. Maybe around 1/10 of an inch, but even 1/10 of an inch could still cause havoc. And when taking a look back at the National Weather Service's forecast for the Houston area, it's more so the northwestern portions in the suburbs of the Houston metro area where it could get definitely very dangerous, where you could experience over 1/4 of an inch of ice. Houston, right around 1/10 of an inch of ice, which is definitely very dangerous for those areas. So definitely keep that in mind. Let's zoom out. I keep messing up this map. Let me fix this again. There we go. But yeah, the worst of the ice, very concerning what we're seeing. What we're expecting to see over Mississippi, over Tennessee, Nashville, up to an inch of ice possible. Memphis, maybe 1/4 of an inch to up to 1/2 an inch of additional ice accumulation on top of what you've already experienced. So yeah, guys, definitely take the necessary precautions. In Atlanta, still primarily rain, but you're expecting to receive around 1/4 of an inch of ice for the Atlanta area in terms of what the Futurecast radar expects at this point. Should begin as rain before we eventually see it change over into snow. Or, not snow, freezing rain for Atlanta. And the worst should be anywhere between 1 a.m. to around 7 a.m. For much of Atlanta, where we could experience up to 1/4 of an inch of ice, like I said. Very concerning for that area. Let me take a look back at the chat. Can Lake Erie overperform and get well over a foot? So Erie, Pennsylvania, I think it's definitely possible. And it's definitely the trend is definitely becoming a little bit more possible because it seems like the National Weather Service and the computer models in general are leaning towards a forecast that's bringing the snowfall a little bit further northward. Taking a look back at the Futurecast radar, let's take a look at it through this radar map. So let's take a look at this forecast for Erie. So it should move in right around 2 a.m. I'll say for Erie. Should begin as light snow, where the snowfall rate should be around 1/10 of an inch per hour before it becomes heavy. This is around 7 a.m. This is where you could expect up to 1/4 of an inch of snow accumulation per hour, and continuing to move forward. It should primarily hover around 1/4 of an inch to maybe 2/5 of an inch of snow accumulation per hour for the most part, but it's going to be a more longer duration event for the Erie, Pennsylvania area. But in total, you still should expect a good area of maybe close to a foot of snow for Erie, Pennsylvania, where as of right now, the current forecast for Erie is right around 10 inches of snowfall, but the high end is 15 inches. So you definitely have a higher high end compared to other cities further eastward for Erie, Pennsylvania. So I wouldn't rule out that possibility. Maybe you could experience up to 15 inches of snow for the Lake Erie area. So definitely keep that in mind for that area. No problem. Thank you for asking a question. Feel free to ask any questions, guys, regarding your civic forecasts for your location, or just when it comes to this winter storm in general. I'm here to give you guys the most in detail forecast possible. So feel free to ask me anything you want, really. Even it doesn't even need to be the snowstorm. It could be anything weather related to just anything you want, really. But taking a look back at the Futurecast radar, let's go a little bit more in detail for the forecast for Erie. So, like I said, the heaviest snowfall should happen right around noon time for Erie. This is where we could expect snowfall rates close to 1/2 inch per hour, which is quite heavy. And this should extend for quite a bit for Erie. Before I'll say it gets light, probably by around 5 p.m., but it should stay for quite a bit before it's all said and done. Close to midnight, approaching Monday. So very long duration event for Erie, Pennsylvania. In terms of how long of an event the snowfall should last, it should last for almost 24 hours. At least in Erie, you could expect the snowfall for probably around 20 to 22 hours, which is quite a long duration event. So between that 22-hour period, you could expect around 10 inches of snowfall. So around 1/2 inch per hour should be the average rate when it comes to snowfall for the Erie, Pennsylvania area, which is quite a bit. So yeah, by right around 11-12 p.m. Erie, Pennsylvania, and for much of northwestern Pennsylvania in general, that's where the snowfall really should begin to get heavy. And the worst of snowfall should be anywhere between 11 a.m. to right around 4 p.m. time for the Erie, Pennsylvania area, and for much of northwestern and western upstate New York in general. Let me take a look back at the chat real quick. Okay, in terms of the Interstate 95 corridor cities, because I'm sure many of you guys are wondering about that. So let's go even further back. Okay, not that far back. Okay, this is where we're at right now. Washington, D.C., right around midnight, the snowfall should move in. For Philadelphia, I'll say right around 3 a.m. For New York City, right around 6 a.m. But gets heavy for Philadelphia right around 7 to 8 a.m., where the snowfall rate should exceed over 1/2 inch per hour. But for Washington, D.C., the snowfall really gets heavy right around the 5 a.m. time frame before it changed over to rain, or at least some freezing rain and sleet. I'll say probably right around 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. as this is going to be the key determinant in how much snowfall you get in the Northeast and whether or not you get a foot. How far north and how quickly that rain snow line moves northward going to be very key for these areas. Right now, the National Weather Service is trending further and further northward, which with each passing update. I'm here located in northern New Jersey, so I'm hoping that we do get over a foot, because it's been a while since I've seen over a foot of snow. So we'll see if the National Weather Service or the computer models adjust their forecasts. In fact, the 18Z run of the European model just came out, so let's take a look at that real quick. See if there's any updates when it comes to where exactly that rain snow line is. And I don't know why this is located. I need to stop pressing Northern Atlantic region. I mean the press, yeah, the United States region. But yeah, here's the latest look at the latest run of the European model. See if there's any updates. So very similar for much of the Midwest. At this point, we shouldn't expect major changes. But for Northeast, still primarily the same for the most part. Yeah. In fact, let's zoom into the Northeast, because I think we get a better idea of the details regarding the rain snow line in the Northeast. So let's take a look at right around this time period, which should be the key period, right around the 2 to 3 p.m., where that snow could change over to a mix of precipitation for Philadelphia and New York City. So yeah, right around this period, this is at valid 0Z Monday. Let's compare that rain snow line at the same time period for the 12Z run, where it was at that same time period. Yeah, pretty much exactly the same. I can't really see a difference. Let me take a look at both again. Maybe there's a difference. Yeah, let me take one more look at this before. Yeah, just barely. I don't. Let me do it again. um. Yeah, it's almost non-distinguishable, guys. I'm trying my best to find any sort of changes regarding the rain-snow line, but not seeing much. It's primarily the same. Okay, I think I might see a small difference, though. Okay, so in the 18Z run, I'm noticing at least right around the Trenton area of New Jersey or Western New Jersey, the snowfall is just ever so slightly a little bit further southward, which would be good news if you're hoping for maybe a little bit more snowfall for New York City, Philadelphia, and North New Jersey, but still very, very similar. Not much differences at all. So, yeah, I wouldn't expect a ton of changes with this specific forecast. The snow totals for Union, Pennsylvania. Let me actually check where it's located. Union. Let me zoom out. Okay, so just south of Pittsburgh. So, taking a look at the current forecasts from National Weather Service, you should expect maybe around 8 to 10 inches of snowfall for right around the New Unionstown area. If we were to take a look at the forecast provided from the European model, as of at least the 12Z run, which again, not a ton of differences compared to what you would experience in the 18Z run. The European model is a bit more aggressive, taking maybe close to a foot of snow right around Unionstown, Pennsylvania. Or is it with Uniontown, Pennsylvania? I apologize. So Uniontown, Pennsylvania, I'll say maybe around 10 to 11 inches. The high end would be maybe around 15 inches. As it seems like there's going to be a decent amount of rain intrusion eventually. So I'm taking a look back at the Futurecast radar. We do see just a little bit of rain intrusion moves in thanks to the warm nose. I'll say it would move in right around 11 a.m., but the snowfall rates will be quite heavy for the Unionstown and Pittsburgh metro area in general, where you could expect close to an inch per hour snowfall rates, as it'll really get heavy for you guys right around 6 a.m. And it should last, like I said, up until 12 p.m. with snowfall rates at close to an inch per hour right around Unionstown. But the total should add up to right around 10 to 11 inches of snowfall for the Unionstown area. And yeah, I won't say the heavy snowfall will end until right around the 7 p.m. time on tomorrow. So very long duration event for the Pittsburgh metro area and Uniontown area in general. So definitely make sure to take the right precautions right around that area. So guys, if you're watching this, feel free to ask any questions regarding any forecasts. If you're just tuning in, just for those who were just tuning in, or anyone really, if you are in here and you want to ask a question now, feel free to ask a question too. But yeah, going into Tennessee, Knoxville, mainly light wintry precipitation right now. Should primarily be an ice event for Knoxville, where you could expect anywhere between half an inch to up to an inch of ice. Springfield right now is in the mix, where I'll say within the next few hours, you should be in variable moderate snow showers for the most part. I don't expect it to necessarily be very heavy snowfall, but a good amount of moderate snowfall should add on to you guys receiving maybe around 8 to 12 inches of snow out of this, which is definitely very heavy for you guys. Oklahoma City still in the light snowfall, but like I said, by 9 p.m., that's where you should begin to worry right around Oklahoma City. And Richmond, you're first starting to begin to get your first maybe heavier snowfall where we're seeing a moderate band just to the southeast or southwest of you guys that should approach within the next, most likely, I would say maybe around 20 to 30 minutes. So be prepared for that if you're driving right around the Richmond area, because that snow band is approaching you guys relatively quickly. Let me check the chat one more time in case I'm missing any questions. Okay, so for Roanoke, you're already in right around light to moderate snowfall, close to 1/2 inch per hour. And it should primarily be light for the next several hours for much of Virginia. Greensboro, you're experiencing actually a heavy snow band right now. So if you're right around the Greensboro area or anywhere just to the east of it, you need to be aware of this. Just because it's light snowfall now does not mean that it's going to stay like this, because if you're, let's say, in Burlington or Hillsborough, North Carolina, I'll say the snow band would move in anywhere between the next 15 to 20 minutes. So I wouldn't recommend going out, at least as of right now, with this heavy snow band moving in. You definitely don't want to risk getting trapped in a snow band like this. Hickory, North Carolina, you're now experiencing heavier snowfall. Charlotte's still out of it, but I'll say right around 11 a.m. That's when the snowfall should really move in for you guys. Definitely be aware of that. No problem. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for asking questions, and thank you guys for all the support. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions, guys. I want to give the best forecast possible for every single one of you, because it is a historic winter storm that you definitely don't want to mess around with. Well, all right, guys. I'll actually need to start leaving pretty soon at this point. Thankfully, the snowfall won't begin in my area in northern New Jersey till tomorrow morning. But I thank you guys all for tuning in. I'll likely go live tomorrow out on the field once this heavy snowfall moves into New Jersey, where we could expect close to a foot of snow right around my area in northern New Jersey. So definitely stay tuned for that for those curious. But thank you guys so much for watching, supporting the live streams, and I plan to do more live streams like this for any live live weather events that are happening. So thank you guys all for watching, and make sure to tune in to the next one.